because you're sort of right on point for a lot of what we're going to be covering today. And I have my cat, Huck the Spiritual Kitty, who's decided to join us today.
Wonderful.
Now he's got me all cat-stracted. I always say there's Yetzer Hara, and there's Yetzer Hatov, and there's Yetzer HaKitty, which is the inclination to be distracted by your cat. So I'm definitely getting the cat inclination right now. But this, this week we're going to get back on our regular schedule. Last week we talked about faith and trustworthiness. This week we're going to come and talk about the soul trait of silence. And we're also going to be talking about anger a little bit, because we touched on that last week. And as Shelley was just, there's a lot of it out there. And so it's really focused on how do we respond to people on the internet? How do we respond to people with anger? So with that being said, let us, I see a couple of new people, so welcome. You're invited to turn your cameras on if you wish. And we're going to do just a short meditation to all become present and create a sacred space together, and then we will engage in our discussion. So please close your eyes and relax in your chair, and take in a deep breath through the nose and hold, and exhale through the mouth and hold. And inhale through the nose and hold, and exhale through the mouth and hold. As you go at your own pace of inhaling through the nose and holding, and exhaling through the mouth and holding. If thoughts should come into your head, just observe them and let them pass. Like watching a cloud pass by in the sky. Now is not the time for solving problems. Right now, all you need to do is inhale through the nose and hold, and exhale through the mouth and hold. And on your next inhale, say to yourself, Shema, and on the exhale, listen. Shema, listen. In Shema, we're listening deeply, without judgment, without offering advice. In Shema, we're listening with an open heart. Shema, listen. And when you're ready, you may open your eyes. Well, friends, to get us started, let me see, where are my slides? I want us to begin with the words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., as they were shared by Karen Broudvian in IJS meditation earlier on Monday, on MLK Day. And he said, peace is not the destination, peace is the way. So what is the message you take from this? What does that mean, that something is the way and not the destination?
I said something like this to my boyfriend last night, because he always says we should be living in the now. And I said, well, living in the now doesn't mean that you don't do anything. I said, you're still reaching for that dream, so which is the destination. But I said that journey on the destination is where you evolve and change and become a better person. And so that's how I take that. Peace is the way. It's being kind to everybody, even the person, that's just stepped on your foot with a high heel and you really want to, you know, put your hands around her neck. You know, but you have to, you know, be generous. That's me.
Thank you, Shelley.
I agree with that. And I think that it's really peace, it's ongoing. Just to reinforce what Shelley said, it's not the end. It's not the end that you have in sight. It's an ongoing thing.
Yes, and I said that as well. I said, and then there's a new, you know, choice. So that's why it's great to be human.
Right. And that's not where it ends. Right.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
Right. And I think this piece, then is the way, I mean, it's personal to each person, how we react to things or don't, you know, it's like that equanimity thing, you know, and so having, you know, like just like we just did with the meditation, you know, take a deep breath, hold it, like exhale, hold it, and proceed from there, you know, from a place of peace and equanimity and maybe silence. We'll get to that today, I guess.
Thank you, Joanne. So yeah, so what I'm hearing is from you and implied by the others as well is that this is sort of this could be a practice for us. It's not, reminds me of the words of Deuteronomy, you know, where Moses is saying, this isn't something that's kind of across the ocean. It's not something that's in the heavens. It's something that's right here. It's right here with you now. And it's not to say that we're always in peaceful circumstances, but this is quite a challenge, I think. Almost feels like to me, almost feels like in a peaceful way, the kind of gauntlet is thrown down here.
And one refrain that I remember from yesterday that people kept saying was a more perfect union. And it's like, peace is a way to a more perfect union. Peace is a way to a more perfect world. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I had to let the cat out or he was gonna. Yeah, Janet.
I'm reminded, I'm a retired newspaper reporter, still an editor. I'm reminded of a time I was interviewing Ram Dass, and I said to him, why are there so many people in the peace movement who are so adamant and so angry? And he said to me, they'd rather be right than be peaceful. And that kind of ties into peace. Peace as a, not the destination, but as a way.
Yeah. No, it's very powerful. There's a lot of people who think they're doing good in the world, but the way they're showing up is causing harm. Yeah, absolutely. Right, so let's go in another level. Now that we've sort of had this idea that peace is the way, where do we go from here? Well, as is often the case, we start with one of our assumptions. And the one that I want to remind us of today is that we're driven by this conflict between the evil inclination and the good inclination, and occasionally the cat inclination. You know, the evil inclination isn't like, again, it's not like the murderous impulses or, you know, terrorism or something like that. It's our angers, it's our fear, it can be our, you know, it's our selfishness. And the good inclination is connecting to others and altruism. And these are, you know, what Freud would call, you know, the id and the superego. You know, these are, you know, part of all of us. And our goal is to learn to navigate between them and to learn to guide, you know, this hostile impulse or this self-preservation impulse by the good inclination. Because we certainly can't survive without the evil inclination, but we don't want it to be in charge. We don't want it to be, you know, guiding our decisions directly. So with that in mind, let's take a look at what this one thing that my Maimonides had to say about anger. May I have a volunteer to read?
I'll read. The sages of yore said, he who yields to anger is as if he worshipped idolatry. See Nedarim 22b. They also said, whosoever yields to anger, if he be a wise man, his wisdom leaves him, and if he be a prophet, his prophecy leaves him. Sorry.
I apologize for not giving gender neutral terms here. But aside from that, what is it you take away from this? What are some of the messages? Is that really true? Yielding to anger is like worshiping idolatry? What does that mean? Yeah, Gail.
If you succumb to anger, you do lose control of your rational mind, which is what this is saying to me. Whatever your highest and noblest impulses are, you often can just blow them right away. If you give in to anger, it just clears all that out of the way and you're dealing at a very low level.
Yeah. Dealing at a low level, our highest impulses are sort of put aside. Thank you.
I think there's a part in the Exodus story towards the end where Moses hits the rock in anger and calls the people some name. It sounds like morons to me, but it's Morim. But in any case, he gets punished for doing that. And, because his wisdom left him in that moment.
Yeah, we can do things we really regret. I know I got mad at my wife this week, and it was, it took a while to kind of repair and take care of that. And I wish I hadn't. We're fine, but I definitely, let's just say my wisdom left me.
Okay.
Yeah, in the equestrian world, when a horse gets frightened or frustrated, we say he just lost his brain for a few minutes. Well, when you get angry, you lose your brain for a few minutes, sometimes for longer, but you do. You lose your ability to think. And if you're angry all the time, how can you possibly think rationally?
Right.
Well, that is a good segue to our next teaching. Oh, sorry. Before we get to that.
But what about God getting angry at Moses? Wasn't God sometimes not God?
That's a very interesting theological
Yeah, it is
point,
interesting.
because there are a few points where God does seem pretty angry, either at Moses or at the people.
The people.
For their stubbornness, and especially like around the golden calf. The divine certainly appeared to be angry. I don't really have like a theological answer for that, but I think it is a recognition that this is part of the spectrum of nature. That this isn't something that we can just expect never to get angry.
Yeah, and even Jesus, he didn't need to kill the fig tree in the New Testament.
Right. Well, I would prefer not to go down that road. I don't have any knowledge of that, and that's a little outside the scope of what we can cover.
I guess what I'm really trying to say is maybe those who we think are perfect are not. That's all.
Well, Moses certainly gets angry when he sees the people worshiping the golden calf. He throws the tablets on the ground and
he throws the tablets.
Yeah, it's furious.
Yeah. He does, yeah. So when, knowing that anger's in play, I wanted to bring in the sultrate of silence. And silence governs when we should speak and when we should not speak. And rather than give a definition, I wanted to start with, with the spectrum. So what happens, when we are at the extremes, when we're having too little or too little silence, for example?
Well, we mouth off and we can hurt people with our angry thoughts and feelings when we express them.
Yeah.
Maybe keeping them inside for a bit makes you more introspective, makes you think about what you're angry about instead of lashing out and putting it on someone else immediately.
But it can also be dangerous not to speak up. If you see something, I mean, this was clear from what happened in Nazi Germany. That's a very good example of it. People said, oh no, we're not going to say anything. And they looked the other way. I wrote a little shtick about that the other day that, people knew. Because somebody was saying, oh, how could we have predicted what happened at the Capitol? Well, I could have predicted it 4 years ago. Okay. I mean, I've kind of had my finger on the pulse of the white supremacists and so forth for many years. In fact, I knew about them when I was 13.
Wow.
So when people say, well, I didn't know, I speak up and I say, yeah, you did. You choose not to know, or maybe you didn't know, but you know now. And I'm not going to be silent about it anymore. Well, not that I ever was that silent, but I'm definitely not silent about
I
it.
agree. I agree with you. We did know. We just didn't know how many. So
Or
again, Trump brought that to an end.
Right. So again, so thank you, Carol and Shelley. And so there may be times where we're motivated, or we feel required to speak out, against an injustice, or if someone is saying something which we feel needs to be answered. And if we had too much silence, then we've lost an opportunity to express ourselves, maybe to be helpful. In the Genesis, in the creation story, we see that the world was created by speech. And Rabbi Elamu taught that when we speak, we have an opportunity to participate in the ongoing creation of the world.
Right.
And which world we pick depends upon what we choose to say or not say.
And also the quality of speaking out and the quality of speech, in that if it's more organized and effective and not just ranting, because ranting does nothing. Ranting was what stoked the flames and fueled the fire, or however you want to put it. But if it's effective speech and purposeful speech and toward a higher end, or helpful speech, then that's well worth breaking a silence.
Yeah, so there's a quote we're not looking at today, maybe we'll look at next week. It's before you speak, think about what good will my words do to myself or to another, for myself or for another person.
Right.
It's being thoughtful, measured, considered. So here's one that really threw me for a loop when I first read it. Maybe we can have a volunteer read this, someone we haven't heard from yet today. Wendy, would you like to read?
Me?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know how to pronounce the first rabbi's name. Is that an I or double L?
Ilya.
Ilya?
It's Ilya.
Rabbi Ilya said, in the name of Rabbi Elazar, son of Rabbi Shimon, just as it is a mitzvah for a person to say that which will be heeded, so it is a mitzvah for a person not to say that which will not be heeded.
Okay, let's just pause there. So let's remind ourselves, what is a mitzvah?
It's a commandment.
Yeah, it's a commandment. Now we may have different sensibilities about the commandments and how important or essential it is to obey all of them. But whatever our practice is, I think the takeaway for me is that this is something that's considered really, really important. And if you want to be literal about it, this is like a commandment from the divine. This is absolutely the way you are supposed to behave in the world. So what is this saying about it's a mitzvah for a person not to say that which will not be heeded?
If you know something's, you're going to say something and that the person in front of you is just going to either ignore it or get angry or go the opposite direction, it's rather pointless to do it. And it does nobody any good. It doesn't help you, doesn't help the receiver of the whatever the information or the word is. It doesn't help the world. So there's no good point to it.
Yeah, thank you, Carol.
I would just say it's a measure of appropriateness. And we will then have to, mitzvah is a good inclination. And then we will have to use wisdom before we talk. So we'll come to the realization if it's going to be heated or not. I'm a slow processor, so that would take me a while. So I would be silent for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Randy, would you like to read the second bullet?
For me? Okay.
I was going to call on Randy because I haven't heard
Randy,
from him today.
okay.
I hope you don't feel put on the spot, but I know you often read.
One should not rebuke those who will be unreceptive to his message. Rabbi Abba says it is obligatory for him to refrain from speaking. As it is stated, do not reprove a scorner lest he hate you. Reprove a wise man and he will love you. Proverbs 9:8.
Thank you so much.
Beautiful.
Okay, so what is this adding to the conversation? I think some of it has already been touched upon, but I'd like to hear some additional thoughts.
Well, I'm thinking rather than just the very first quote talked about yielding to your anger. So this would be one way to consider before you yield to your anger or do something with your anger, because you are considering the person or people you're going to be speaking to. It makes sense to me. In other words, if you're going to waste your words, if that person already hates you or even hates what you're going to say, you're going to waste your words, and but the wise man will love you. That's really, it's huge.
I think it's also about the receptivity of the person you're talking to, those who will be unreceptive to his message. I mean, there's a point at which you can't talk to someone, they're not going to hear you, they're only going to hate you more for your point of view. But someone who has an open mind, a wise man, is someone you can talk to because they're open to listening to another point of view. Maybe it's a little bit know your audience, know who you're talking to. Is the person going to be receptive, or are they going to just turn off to what you're saying? And maybe I'm thinking that because that's very much the environment that we're in.
Yes, I agree with you.
There's no talking to some people right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what I'm responding to in this.
And my study partner and I were talking about this just last week and how hard it is to accept correction. We all want to learn and we all want to improve, not just in knowledge, but our behavior. We're working on our traits and we're trying to grow to be better people and more holy. And taking in somebody who's correcting you is very difficult sometimes. So the wise person is the one who says, I'm going to put my emotions aside and take in the fact that I have a growth opportunity here.
Yeah, thank you. Janet.
Two things. One is I sing in choirs, and we had a woman in one of our groups. One time when I told her we were in concert and she was singing the wrong part, she said to me afterwards, "I'd not like to be corrected." I'm also thinking of the fact that there are those who are operating with alternative facts, and there is no amount of reason that is going to get through. So you might as well just be silent or listen. Just listen.
Thank you, Janet. Carrie.
This whole silence, everything we're talking about tonight, I have been all week reading and thinking about how to talk to or not talk to people who are totally different from me politically or morally. And I was reading, there's an article, let me get it, in the ABC News by interviewing Daryl Johnson, who was a former DHS officer. And the crux of he says there's these white supremacists, everything. He says, but he doesn't believe that we should be silent, and he doesn't believe we should lecture. He says if you have family and friends that are you want to try to reach out to or understand, you have to do it with love and compassion. Mm-hmm. So the anger character trait is one where I'm very angry at these people for believing what they do, but how can I tone my anger down and not be silent and communicate with others who are different from me? So that's what I'm taking, that's what I'm exploring with these character traits, is how to connect to other people who are obviously very, very angry and, in my mind, disillusioned or whatever.
Delusional.
Well, thank you, Kate. That's really, I think that's the definition of holy work, because that's incredibly hard to do. And that is, trying to put a person-to-person relationship as a higher priority than our own feelings, our own anger, especially when the other person is doing something that you think is harmful, that it's just really seems to be, from your perspective, really out there. And that's just as I say, a holy work of the highest order. Okay, so let's go.
Can I say something? I don't feel well today, so that's why you see my name.
Okay.
But a lot of what I'm listening to, and what I think is that there's different ways to communicate with people with respect, even if there is no acceptance or approval from your agenda. And the way we communicate, there's 3 different ways, whether you're aggressive, assertive, or passive. And the passive avoidant or the non-responsive is very harmful in its own way. Silence can be helpful or deadly. And again, there's a spectrum there. But the anger, it is something that everyone has, and it's okay to feel anger. It's what you do with it that's the important thing. And the mitzvah of not speaking slanderous words to people is what it is. That is the mitzvah. It does harm, and we are not to harm others. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, thank you. That was really beautifully said. And I think what you and Carrie said really anticipated kind of the next quotes I wanted to share. which I will read to kind of keep us moving so we can get to the breakout groups. But it's from Pirkei Avot, one who publicly shames another has no place in the world to come. And from Maimonides, one who rebukes another should administer the rebuke in private, speak tenderly, and be clear, for it is the person's own good. And again, these can be things that are really, really hard to do, but what is sort of a commonality of these two teachings?
Well, not to shame someone publicly or rebuke someone publicly, but in private. So,
Respect them.
and to be gentle.
Caring about the other person's honor. It's one of the honor. And, yeah.
Yeah, caring about the other person's honor, to be gentle. And again, these are not easy things to do. And there may be circumstances where maybe there's not an opportunity to do this because, yes. Sorry, I can't see everyone. Was someone trying to make a comment?
Well,
I'm unmuted. I was going to say it comes from a place of love, because if you're able to turn away, you're taking that breath of the divine in you for a second, you're pausing. And that breath is enough to get you into your heart, and then you can have an answer. So you're not, and the same for when it's time to give them the answer, you know.
Thank you. So I wanted to share a couple of examples times where I tried to kind of implement these teachings. And I think both of these were from 2018, the various things that sort of came up on Facebook. And so the first one, I can't remember what these were posts on the American Mussar page. And the first one, I don't remember what the subject was. It was probably some LGBTQ type of post, you know, or about gay rights or gay inclusion. And so this person responds, you know, what a society of filth. Hashem burned Sodom for this. And so I wrote back and I said, attacking comments are not allowed on this page. Please remove it and hide the post if it offends you. And the person apologized and said, my bad, sorry. Now, some people respond with more anger. Some people, you know, remove it themselves, you know, and I call this approach setting a boundary. And this is pretty much the only way you can get banned or blocked from the Facebook page, is if you do this kind of speech or Holocaust denial. You don't get a chance to take that down, you just get, but those don't show up very much anymore for whatever reason. But I've really set like a standard for how people address one another on the page. Any thoughts or comments on this, or should I show approach number 2?
I have a comment. It's very hard for people to censor themselves when they're not used to having an audience and they need to vent as well. And they don't know how to regulate that. And it causes a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
I talk with a lot of patients who have a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
This was beautifully done, Greg.
Yeah.
Because you didn't say anything to the person to attack the person. You didn't publicly shame that person.
No, it's the perfect amount of.
Look what happened. My bad, sorry. I mean, that's beautiful. That's exactly what that was talking about in the other quotes.
And I think the hard thing is, to see that even more in this next example, is we talked about, well, don't like reprove the scorner or if someone's not going to listen, but it's really hard to know. Like, I don't know if this person is going to listen. Well, I
Mhm.
knew I was going to be throwing gas on the fire. So it can be really hard to tell. And I really try to keep a, you know, it's like that old show Dragnet, you know, just the facts, man, you know, just to sort of put it out there. Like this is, you know, this is the guideline. And as Jane was saying, some people don't know the guidelines, or they've gotten caught up in their anger. And so they've kind of overstepped what they would normally do. So this, I was trying to give people an opportunity to kind of correct and do some teshuvah and return and repentance.
And you set boundaries. This is like, I think about my own page, and I used to get some kind of offensive attacks. And I told the person who was doing it, if you personally attack me or my friends, I will remove your posts. End of subject. I did it nicely. I said, you're welcome to comment, but if you do this, that's not acceptable. You did the same thing. And even if it puts oil on the fire, as it were, you have set the boundary. And then you have, if you do remove the person's post yourself, the person understands why.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And you wouldn't invite that kind of dialogue into your home. Why would you want it on your personal page?
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely. Okay, here's an even more challenging example that came up. This was from 2018 when the family separation policy, and there was, I had shared a fundraiser for a legal defense fund. And I'm not going to read this whole thing, but it was pretty, this person was angry, and why are we doing these foreign children, and what about American children? And, you know, I'll read this last sentence. I think you extremes need to get a grip and pay attention to the needs of the American children that are suffering in this country. So, okay, I was pretty mad. I was not pleased with this. And I decided to take a different type of approach rather than just setting a boundary, because they didn't exactly like attack someone. This was kind of pontificating and some angry thoughts. So the approach I took here was, you know, I tried to look for a commonality. It's like, yeah, it is terrible about all these American kids. And there are fundraisers for them. And do you have a charity? This is something I think I learned from Rabbi Shmuley Yankovich, who was talking, Yankovich, sorry, who was, I saw him do this on his wall. It's like, oh, well, what, you know, what charity should we be doing? And if you start a fundraiser, I'll share it. And then I explained, you know, here's kind of how things work here. You know, this is what Mussar is, and this is kind of what we're trying to do. So I'm curious, how do people think this person responded? It's really hard to predict. It's just more of like almost.
I'm sorry, Greg. Was this in response to some kind of fundraising? I missed that part.
Yeah, I was sharing a fundraiser for a legal defense fund that was trying to get families reunited who were separated at the border.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, so this was, you know, it was, I think the sister of one of my rabbis was a lawyer from this organization. And so, you know, she started the fundraiser, and I shared it on my page, or shared it on, and this person really got bent out of shape about it. And so, you know, I, you know, gave this type of response. So how, you know, would we predict that this person would be amenable to my approach?
I mean, they might, but I don't like that they.
I think it's interesting that you avoided responding to you extremes.
Right, that's what I was offended by when I saw that.
That was quite,
That's not nice.
quite
I mean,
an
does she
assumption
know?
there.
What do you think you're extreme?
Yeah, it's pretty, it's offensive.
Very offensive.
It is
I think
offensive.
that there was a positive response to your post, Greg. So I think.
it occurs to me that this person may just be wanting to, sometimes people who post things like this, just wanting to pick a fight, just wanting to have an argument.
Yes.
Yeah, I usually try to avoid those.
Yeah.
Because they're worthless. So that's a time when whatever you say isn't going to make a difference.
Okay, so here's how the person responded. So, okay, so they share a little bit about their Christianity and then they answer. It's like, I donate directly to my community through these programs. I'm going to advocate for homelessness in my state. And I work directly with the Wounded Warrior projects. So, which is one of the things which I shared that I do. And so I'm very active in these causes. Thanks for asking.
Nice response.
So you brought him back to who he's becoming, because he sounds like a wonderful person, but the fear and all that anger got a hold of him.
Maybe it's going to change him the next time.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that are like that right now. They actually are like this person, but they have something that they're angry about. And once they speak it out, and if they are told the right information, explained to how to be our best self, it calms them.
Right.
But he's saying he is his best self, but yet but that's implying that part of being his best self is to be angry and nasty.
Right.
So I don't see this. I mean, I think Greg's response calmed him down.
Yeah.
That he was able to calmly talk, but he does not own his own anger or the way he responded to Greg.
I asked the guy a lot of questions about, what is he angry about? And I said, we started talking about, how the Buddhists hit their heart and that gets you into your heart center. And I said, when you do that, it takes you back to your heart and you're out of your head. And so then I kind of taught him how to do that. And for him, he was like, wow. So, he realized that he was now more connected to the divine instead of to be in anger. So I helped to bring him back out of that.
I think what you did with your answer, Greg, was you diffused some of his anger, and that's a great start. But he still needs to, or he's still got issues, because I think he's a decent person within a narrow view of the world. So within the confines of what he's willing to do and the way he sees the world, he's giving. But for him to end with thanks for asking means that you've done something to diffuse how angry he is. And that's a place for people to start, because there is so much anger out there. And if we could diffuse it a little bit, I also think that social media platform is such a dangerous thing, because people can say whatever they want without any filter at all, for the most part. And they don't think about what they're saying before they post. And they do see it as a release, and a way to just vent. And that's just a really unfortunate thing. It really is. And I thought that your response was great, because it diffused his anger, is the only way I can say it. And I think maybe that's where we can start.
I want to say how fascinating it is that everyone has assumed this was a man, and actually it was a woman.
That's interesting.
From some of our own.
Yes, our own biases.
Yeah.
But I was no longer like the extremes. I decided it's like, I'm not going to act like an extreme, because if I start getting into it and arguing, I just reinforce this negative story and the separation. And I tried, and I think as some of you have pointed out, it's like, this person, it's not like I'm going to invite this person out for a dinner party, or that they are, come around to my point.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like with our own growth journey. If I can do 2% better next time for something that's a real struggle, I'll take that as a win every day of the week. And so if we can help somebody else do 2% better versus throwing gas on the fire where they do 1,000% worse, that's a win. I would take every day of the week.
I agree. Let's send more light for them.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So I'm sorry that we're a little bit rushed here. So I'm going to split us in for a partner activity. And I'd like you just together to write a response, with some of these guidelines. Someone makes a comment on one of your posts you don't like, or you make a comment somewhere else and they sort of attack you. And to sort of think about how you might, respond. And have like 5 minutes, and maybe
Everybody will
you
come in
just kind of like write a sentence or two for how you might respond to this situation. Let me pull up I'm going to need to stop the share to set up the
Could you put the question up again?
Sure, sorry. I will if I can find the breakout rooms. Oh, there's the breakout rooms. Okay.
How do you respond to an offensive comment?
Yeah, so the idea is that someone writes a comment that you don't like on one of your posts, or responds to a comment you've made somewhere in an attacking way. So for you and your partner, figure out, how you might respond. Just together, kind of write a response to this. And you can use either the setting a boundary technique, or you can use the look for commonality technique. All right, so the rooms are open. Please click to join.
Oh, hi, Greg.
Hi.
Am I in a room with you?
No, I don't think so. You are supposed to be in with Carrie, so you should have a button, and there you go. Hey, stop you. Hey, Shelley and Randy, welcome back. We will have everyone else in about 2 seconds.
Beautiful.
Boom.
That was great. Thank you. Great. How interesting that my week has been very similar to what you're talking about. So
yeah.
Yes. But mine coming from my metaphysical type way of thinking about source and the divine, and I love, I went to Bible school when I was in my 20s. So, I loved the First Testament.
Thank you. Well, I know it was very, it was a very short time. But does anyone have anything, that they wrote that they would like to share in our last couple of minutes?
We didn't get there.
No, the only thing I wanted to say is that, I have the commonality with the person I was talking about, and on, I guess, Yom Kippur, we both came to each other to apologize for, because I really wasn't talking to him anymore, and he apologized for his response to what I did by accident. End of story. We're okay now.
That's good.
Well, that's nice. I'm glad that you could have a repair and reconciliation, in such a profound way. Both of you were on that page.
Janet and I, it was too short to actually do something very concise, but we had a good talk. We both arrived at the way that we would approach is more like looking for commonality. She liked empathy. I like questions. And so that's right away, that's like not attacking. And so we came up with, this person had been on and had said, Israel controls China. Israel controls China. I'm like, okay, that. And so we decided that's an interesting point of view. I'd like to know where that came from. Maybe something that you would, but then we didn't get on to discussing it. So that statement is.
You're right. Asking where they got it from, I think, is a very good point. Very good point.
Maybe, but maybe not. Depends, I think.
It can be, and sometimes you get the response, well, do your own research.
Yeah, give me your email address and I'll send you 42
pages.
Exactly. Send it to you. Which
right.
Read.
Yeah, this is a delicate thing, and it, those probably what I shared were probably not my first attempts at this, and there were plenty of other examples that didn't work, but I hope that we can all be a little bit hopeful that maybe if we try, we might get some surprising responses. And again, it's for each of us to decide, where to draw the line. I'm not going to, as I say, I'm not doing this with Holocaust deniers. That's not, that's way over the line, but, I always have to say, especially that second one, I was really shocked. Like, here's someone who's helping the homeless and doing all kinds of good things, but boy, had some other axe to grind or some other situation. So,
Yeah, but it was in a very narrow context of people she thought were okay to reach out and help. And there were a lot of other people who weren't okay to help.
yeah,
So she's got a way to go, but it's a start. It's a
right.
start.
At least she didn't look at everyone who was advocating. At least one person who was advocating for these people was maybe a little less evil in her eyes, less extreme. And okay, so let's all just close our eyes.
I think
Yeah.
taking this approach and thinking it through, Mussar, actually will bring us to that unity that Joe Biden is suggesting that we strive for.
We kind of did the same thing, and it was really because we role played and everything we said what sounded attacking at first until we got to that point of, I really don't understand that point of view. So could you elaborate and tell me why you think this was the best way to get what you wanted, or something like that?
Yeah. Thank you, Bonnie. Role play is a good idea. It's a way of putting yourself in their shoes, because we've all, as I said, we've all lost it with somebody. And I can't remember the exact quote, and I can't remember who said it, but it was like, don't judge someone's entire worth based on their worst day. And so, all right, so we're a little bit over time, so let's just close our eyes for a small closing meditation, and may we all just have a moment of thanks for this opportunity of community together. And maybe walk forward, maybe with our ears a little more open and our minds a little more open, and with an intention to be a little wiser as we walk through this world. When you're ready, you may open your eyes. Well, once again, thank you all so much for being here. Wishing you a good weekend and a good week, and we should continue to work on silence when we gather again next week. So thank you, and have a good evening.
Bye.
Shabbat shalom, Greg.
Shabbat shalom.
Thank you.
Shabbat shalom.
Bye. Thank you.